Hey Dibs, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Recap Show. This is Bennett. I'm your host, and we're all done with week 3, and it's just a wild and crazy league as always. So this week, I actually did not spend the whole day Sunday watching football. I actually did some projects around the house, namely filling in a hole where I had removed a stump in my front yard and I filled it in with soil and did the whole hay and seeding and all that stuff. So that was my Sunday afternoon. And my dad's story for the week is just all about Saturday, which was one of the best days I've ever had. And it's amazing what your litmus test for what a good day is as you get older. Back in the day, it may have been partying or go to a concert, but these days it's all about uh, hanging with the family. So Saturday was one of those days where my daughter had a softball game in Rocky Hill at 9:30, followed by a birthday party all the way up in Windsor Locks. So going from south of Hartford to north of Hartford. Meanwhile, my son had a baseball game at 1 at Hall High School. So had to make it back for that, make arrangements for the ride, all that stuff. And I was just beaming with pride at that game because my son, Evan, was the starting pitcher. And he, I don't want to say got roughed up in the first inning, but gave up a lot of hits. The defense let him down a little bit. He had some walks. So he gave up a bunch of runs in the first inning. But I was just super proud of him because his body language never changed. His demeanor on the mound was cool. He didn't panic or show any frustration when his defense didn't make plays, all that kind of stuff. So really proud of my son for getting through that inning. And then he follows up the second and third innings with basically, shutdown innings. He went 1, 2, 3 in the second, which included an 11 pitch at bat where it took him 11 pitches to finally strike out the kid. And then he pitched well in the third inning as well. So just an amazing day, amazing dad moment. And all of that was followed by a big Meowly team event at the Hartford Athletic game. So it was morning till night, all day Saturday, a lot of fun, pretty exhausted by the end, but doesn't get any better than that as a dad in business these days. So really fun weekend that was not centered around football at all. But that being said, let's get to the recap for the league because that's what we're here for. So we finally had a couple close games here, two that came down to Monday night. We had Gritty Dancer, formerly Matt's monstrous team, with a 116-5 to 114 win over Go Bijan Go. As you can see, it was 2.5 point difference. And if you want to look at how it came down to Monday night, you've got Brenton Strange from Jacksonville with 8 points, canceling out more or less Brian Thomas Jr. with 6.5 points. But the difference on Monday night was James Cook getting the 15 points. So that helped Gritty Dancer get the 116-5 victory over Go Bijan Go. And Bijan, did have 20 points, 12 points. The Falcons offense is starting to get better. I do think, as a Falcons fan, as I mentioned in week 1, that I was not worried about the week 1 performance against the Steelers. And I think as the season goes on, I'm still really confident that the Falcons offense is going to be there. But Bijan Robinson hasn't quite got there yet. So he gets 12 points. Malik Neighbors has been a stud the last 2 weeks with 23 points. And Rashee Rice has been Mahomes' go-to guy there as well. So some good points from those people, but not enough to overcome the 30 points from Derrick Henry. Justin Jefferson had an okay game, Mahomes, and of course James Cook put it away on Sunday night. Another close game was the Judgment Day defeating Endzone Esquires 118 to 104.5. We've got a candidate for the Bench Player of the Week award because you've got Derek Carr with 8 points. Now he had 25 points in the first game, 25 fantasy points in the second game. I think the Saints themselves scored about 90. And then next thing you know, he's got 8 points and they only score 12 points. That's the NFL for you. Meanwhile, you've got Sam Darnold on the bench with 27 points. Who knew Sam Darnold was going to have a great performance against Houston? It remains to be seen if they're for real or not. But It definitely would have helped End Zone Esquires. They fall to 0-3. They do get 25 points from Chuba Hubbard, but not much else. There's that one trick play from Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Marvin Harrison Jr. did okay as well, but not quite enough to overcome Judgment Day with 29 from Kyren Williams of the Rams, 23 from Charbonnet, filling in for the injured, I forget the guy's name, Mike something, injured in Seattle. So he gets 23.5 points. And DK Metcalf also with Seattle, 21 points. So Judgment Day, they improved to 2-1 with a 118-104-5 victory. We have another close game. We get the Cash Flow Crusaders win their first game after 2 tough weeks in a row over Jeff's Only Idiots Pay for College. You've got, Dak Prescott playing catch up in the second half, so he gets some garbage fantasy points. You've also got Jamar Chase in the Monday night loss with 27, and that kind of canceled out Joe Burrow's 28. You also have Cole Kmet with 20, and that's enough to get the win because poor Jeff has Juwan Jennings is 41.5 points on his bench. So you can probably tell where that's going. So that wasn't enough to overcome with Chris Olave, who actually had an okay day. And Burrow and Jones did okay, but just not enough points elsewhere around. They definitely could have used the 41.5 points from Juwan Jennings. So they fall to 1-2, and Cash Flow Crusaders gets their first win of the year. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the John Machado's team, the Emoji team, winning 103.5 to 41.5. Might be the lowest point total I've ever seen in fantasy football. I mean, I've seen 70s and 60s, but 41 points is just god awful. You've only got one double digit. You have 10 points from Stroud, nothing from Stevenson. I forget if he got hurt or not. Half a point from Jamison Williams. So I think Laporta's hurt as well. So just single digits all around. That only adds up to 41.5 points. That's not going to get it done when Machado's team had a pretty good showing from Stafford, Gibbs, and especially Amari Cooper, who I don't think had any. Yeah, he had 4.5 total fantasy points for the season coming into the game. He gets 23.5. So you'll obviously take that to get the win. So not too impressive. It's more about Eric's team only scoring 41 points. But as always, you'll take the wins any way you can get them. We have 2 other games, saving the best for last, just so you know. Derry Demons get the high score of the league. They go to 3-0. They get 34 points from Josh Allen Monday night. They get 33 from Saquon. Most of that was in the second half of the game. Goddard had a monster game. What did he do? He had like 10 catches for 170 yards. Didn't even, if he would have just had a touchdown or two, it would have been an even better game. But just scoring all around, only a couple people in single digits. Meanwhile, not ChatGPT actually had a pretty good game. They would have beaten a lot of the other teams, but they only get 11 from Hurts. Obviously, that hurts literally. Pardon the pun. When you're playing against Saquon and Saquon gets 33 points, and Jalen Hurts doesn't get to enjoy the point total. Breece Hall did okay. Montgomery did okay. So pretty good points all around, just not enough when you play the top scoring team in the league. So they fall to 1-2. The Derry Demons go to 3-0. They're tops in the league, along with the Mahomies, who did not get that many points, sort of middle of the road point wise. The Killer Bees are just struggling to score points, as you'll see in a second. But, Brock Purdy had a good game. Jonathan Taylor had a good game. At the top, Alvin Kamara came back down to earth after, I think, 40-something points last week. Very top-heavy with Taylor and Purdy, and then a little bit from everyone else on the team to get 106. Meanwhile, you have Killer Bees, my team, with, I think, the worst injury luck I've ever seen in fantasy football. Because if you look, Keenan Allen was out, Jordan Addison was out, Josh Palmer was out, and those were midweek or late in the week inactives from the list. Meanwhile, Christian McCaffrey and Puka Nacua are on injured reserve. So I mean, basically, my entire team was out hurt. Um, so I did get a good game from Lamar Jackson. Um, Mark Andrews has been a bust this year. He's got another tight end on the team, Isaiah Likely, to compete against, and he's also coming back from an injury. So just not a lot of points, but these are basically all my backups. So I just hope that my guys get healthy and they can actually start playing at some point, because I'm not scoring any points and I'm not winning. So you've got the Mahomes, not too impressive, but again, they go to 3-0, and the Killer Bees fall to 0-3. And that's it for the recap. We'll take a quick look at the power rankings, which I've kind of been joking about every week. Again, Killer Bees still all the way down at number 12 after post-draft ranking of number 1, and you see a bunch of movement either way. The Derry Demons, with their big score, they move to 1, and the Mahomes are pretty much right in line there. Take a quick look at the standings. Still very early in the season, but you've got 2 3-0 teams in this league. The Mahomes and the Demons, and then you've got a bunch of 3-1s, 2-1s over here. And what I always like to do is look at the scoring total, because this kind of tells you if your team is, if they're 3-0 but they've got the lowest points, then they've probably gotten a little lucky with who scored against them, and kind of vice versa. So in this case, you've got the top 2 teams, or two of the top 3 scoring teams are 3-0, and then the other one is 2-1. So no one with a lot of points has had real tough luck. And then the 0-3 teams, you've got the Esquires and the Killer Bees with the 2 lowest point totals in the league, and they're 0-3. So the records pretty much bear out what the scoring has been for each team. So still early in the year, lots of football to be played, but there you go. And then finally, as always, I like to do the bench player of the week award for the player that not only scored a ton of points on the bench, but in some cases also prevented a win. So you had the end zone Esquires with Derek Carr going from 25 a week down to 8, with Sam Darnold on the bench. That's an honorable mention, but we've got to give the bench player of the week award to Jawan Jennings with 41.5 points. That would have easily turned the tide from a 7.5 point loss to a big win. So that one has to hurt. Everyone else on the Niners is hurt, so I guess the move was to play him. I don't really see anyone else that you can say was obviously shouldn't have been starting, but definitely a bummer to get 0 from Rashid Shaheed, who had 20 points in his last game, 16.5 the week before. He gets 0. And meanwhile, Jawan Jennings, who had 8.5 and 4 points, like pretty pedestrian numbers. And then next thing you know, he's got 11 catches for 175 yards. So congratulations to Jawan Jennings for winning the Bench Player of the Week award. And that's going to do it for week 3 of the Dads in Business Connecticut Fantasy Football Weekly Recap Show. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.